Before we dive into the rest of the material for Bootstrap here, what I wanted to do was set a portion of the record here straight for something that you are going to see associated with Bootstrap all the time. And that is the difference between responsive and adaptive design. And what I'll tell you is it's not used technically properly with Bootstrap. What we did with HTML and CSS in Web 101 was responsive design. What we did was we used CSS and media queries to create a desktop, a tablet, and a smartphone display. With adaptive design, and it's one of the things that I think is a challenge. It's a modern challenge because who knows what size your device is going to be. So right now, and I have an embarrassment of devices. I will tell you that that is true. I have a 5K monitor here. I have a 1440p monitor here. I have whatever this iPad display turns out to be, I think it's like 400 ppi. At any rate, you can never know anymore what the default screen size is for one of your unknown potential, excuse me, future users. So with adaptive design, rather than have three anchor points for really very, very vastly different screen sizes, what you have is a whole bunch of smaller anchor points, so that rather than go, potentially hundreds of pixels in between where, one media query exists and where the next media query will fire, but all of us, I think, we all of us noticed that there was weird behaviors that we would get, right? You needed 45 more pixels for, your two content blocks to line up perfectly, and you just didn't have them. With adaptive design, you have, more gradations between desktop, smaller desktop, a little smaller desktop, tablet, smaller tablet, smartphone, smaller smartphone. And what that does is twofold, really. Number one, to be positive, what it does is it helps you ensure that you are more properly addressing the exact screen size of your client's machine. So that's positive. On the negative side, though, remember how you felt like in the very beginning, I believe it was chapter 8, when you first started doing responsive design, and you're like, I have to type this 3 times, potentially? Yes. Remember that was a pain in the ass? Do it 7 times now. So I'm not saying that necessarily the work is, 1-to-1. So if it was 3 times more work before, it was 7 times more work this time to get Bootstrap to work. That's not necessarily the case. But what is true is Bootstrap as a framework claims all the time to be responsive when in fact it is adaptive. I am a stickler for the correct terminology here. It's the very same thing that happens when we teach you we'll hear things in colleges about pedagogy. Pedagogy means the teaching of children. I cannot teach you the same way we would teach children. You would find it placating, and you would think it was petulant, and you would leave immediately, and actually your brains don't respond that way. Children with pedagogy learn by differences. You with andragogy, which means adult learning, you learn by mapping things that are the same to your experiences. So I know that was a long damn way around the block for adaptive versus responsive design. But it is true that what you did in 101 was responsive design. And what you'll do here with Bootstrap in 102 is not responsive design, despite the fact that a lot of the documentation you're going to see says responsive design. That's bullshit. It's adaptive design. There are numerous different, smaller gradations in between, you know, desktop and tablet. And that is called adaptive. So Bootstrap is adaptive design.